Hi, I'm Ashley, and if you're new here, I'm a professional dancer, aerial instructor, aerialist, nutritionist, and I'm an adult ballet dancer. I also like to dabble in a lot of other hobbies and activities that are available to adults. I don't believe that the fun has to stop just because you're above 18. I'm a professional modern dancer, but I only recently got back into ballet, which was my first love, and I've actually made a video or two about it by now. My goal is to share my experience as an adult dancer being in pretty serious environments, even though I am not really training as if I'm going to become a huge professional or anything like that. Just a brief rundown of my history. I danced for about 3.5 years in my preteen and teen years, and then I started doing aerial arts, and I've done that for the past 8 years, and then I found a flyer for a modern dance company through my circus school and auditioned for that, and I've been with my modern company for 6 years now, so it's pretty cool that I've been able to actually be a professional in some capacity. Even though I'm not a professional ballet dancer, it's still really nice to be paid to perform and kind of live that dream that I always had growing up, because my number one goal was to be a professional ballet dancer. So a lot of my ballet journey so far has been very healing because I'm giving myself something that I never was able to do. When I was a student, my school did not do any ballets. We just did recital at the end of the year. And I had a couple of other performances because I was in our performance company, but we just did kind of outreach events around town. So I never got to do a real ballet. So my first story ballet was actually doing Narnia. I have a reel about my experience doing Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that was at my local school, which was super fun to be a part of. That was my first ever ballet. Of course, that's not a classical ballet. It was an original ballet by the owner of the school, but it was still really fun to be a part of that storytelling process because that's not something that I had really gotten to experience before. So I did that at 24 years old. I'm 25 now, and now I have done 2 ballets. If you want to know more about that first one that I did, check out that short that I have about Narnia, because that's going to have more information on there. When I did Narnia, I was dancing fire. So my class did, basically we were fire coming out of the fireplace. If you're familiar with Narnia or if you've seen the movie, it's basically Mr. Tumnus's fireplace when Lucy goes and meets him at his house and he's got the fire going and he's kind of playing this flute. So that music is playing from the movie, and we come out of the fireplace and then we start dancing, and we're wearing kind of very fire looking costumes. In the opening scene, I was a mom, and I did a dance with all the other adult dancers, which were for the most part actually moms of the students, so it was very fitting. But I had to pretend to be a mom, and I had 2 kids that I was sending off because of the war. So that's what happened in the beginning of the Narnia movie. So I sent off the kids, they got on the train, we did a little dance because we were sad, as one does. Then I was an autumn fairy, so my group also did seasonal fairy, so we all had a different season. And then my sister ended up being the fairy queen, and she was on point and everything, and everybody else was on flat, so it was pretty cool for her to have that opportunity. That one was probably my favorite out of all of them, and I got to wear very autumnal clothing, which is pretty fitting for me, so I was pretty happy with that one. And then I was in the battle scene on the evil queen side, so I got to play kind of an evil character, which is also really fun. So overall I got 4 roles in that, and that was really cool to be in kind of the whole ballet and a part of that storytelling process with different roles. And that was really my first time doing anything like that and stepping into that area and having experience doing all of those different roles. Now on to the second ballet I did, which actually was a classical ballet, and this was Don Quixote. My sister and I, we were both in the character corps, and then she was a townsperson. I was not a townsperson because I have an ankle impingement right now, and so my ankles are injured and I'm not able to perform on point. So my only option really was to be in the character corps. So I was in the character corps in Act 2, even though I couldn't wear point shoes and I couldn't participate in the ballet, doing ballet. It was really fun to get to try something new and be involved, and also get some experience doing character, which went better than I thought it was, never having done character before. I performed with a student company, so it's a nearby school that does ballets. They do Nutcracker every December, and then they do a different spring ballet every spring. So a lot of the times it is more classical ballets, but sometimes they do a little bit more modern ballets, and once in a while I think they also do contemporary ballets. I was one of only about 3 adult guest artists. The other adults were professional artists. When I was a young student training, I was usually on the older side because I did start kind of late. So I am kind of used to that, and now of course it's more extreme that I'm an adult and I'm dancing with teens and sometimes kids too. I think that it definitely helped that I wasn't the only one. Like, I'm okay being one of the only ones, but it is definitely hard when you're the only adult and everybody around you is like a teenager or a kid. It was quite a bit of time commitment for something that's not my job, and I do have a career in dance. I am a professional modern dancer, so I do get paid to rehearse and to perform with that. So it's kind of weird for me because sometimes I am paid to perform and sometimes I'm not. It just depends on where I go and who I'm with. When I'm with my company, obviously I'm always compensated. It's really just when I'm doing like guest work outside of that that I'm not, and I would really hope to get to a point someday where I maybe could have it as a job, or even if I were to share it on YouTube and that was enough to support me being able to just participate, I think that that would be really cool too. The rehearsals were always on the weekend, so Saturday and then sometimes Sunday depending on what needed to be done. So a lot of the other students were in class several days a week. I'm sure that there were several students who were in class pretty much every day of the week, including the weekends. This year I was not taking class there. I would like to eventually. None of the classes just like worked out with my schedule, but luckily they do accept adults in their classes, and as long as you fit that level within reason, you can go into that class. So I would really like to take classes with them in the future. But even doing just a production with them and not being a regular student there, I feel like I still learned a lot and I still got a lot of technique out of that, and I kind of have some familiarity with character as well. So the commitment for me looked like trying to keep most of my Saturdays and towards the end like Sundays free, which was a challenge, but the most challenging part was that the schedule only came out like the week of, so I didn't really ever know if I was going to have rehearsal, or if I was going to have rehearsal, what time it would be, and sometimes we wouldn't know until Saturday night after rehearsal if we were going to have to rehearse Sunday, because Sunday was kind of the day usually to polish and work on anything that still needed work. If we got everything accomplished on Saturday, we didn't have to come back for Sunday. Having my weekends taken up when I'm an adult with several jobs and I still train on my own was pretty challenging because I lost my day to just kind of rest. Not that I really do a ton of that anyway, because my rest day kind of also becomes my chore day and my get things done day. So I was not only having to put off my rest, but I was also having to try to fit in my productive time in with everything else too. So trying to still get things done even though I was so busy. As an adult, there's a little bit less flexibility in that area. Like you know, you have to still keep up with the students and still are expected, you know, to do all of the same things that they're doing, but it's definitely a challenge when, you know, you have all of these commitments as an adult and you can't always just drop everything to go to this rehearsal or whatever, and you kind of have to plan in advance. So that was definitely a challenge for me. I'm planning on doing it again, and luckily it's only for a period of time. I think that our rehearsals started in February and then we performed in April. So overall the things happen pretty fast. I know with Nutcracker they start in September and perform early December. So again, same thing, it's kind of like you have a few months with just a few rehearsals on the weekends and you perform. It was a really fun experience, and I ended up performing twice. So we had a show one night and then the next day we had a show kind of earlier in the day. So we had 2 shows, 2 different days, and I had to drive out of town for both of them, and the whole rehearsal week, it was the 3 days leading up to the show. So we had 3 rehearsal days and then show. So that was 5 nonstop days of just basically running everything that we had learned. And then the weeks prior to that, we also had rehearsals where we were just running through the entire thing. So how it started was we were just in with like our group casting. So like I was in the character corps, and at first I was only rehearsing with the character corps. Then, because we had some parts that we were performing with the character soloists, and so it was the same music, they were just doing different things. Once we kind of knew what we were doing, and we had to combine rehearsals with them because we kind of had to interact a little bit. So they had separate rehearsals, we had separate rehearsals. Then after that we came together and we learned some stuff together, still had some separate stuff. And then the next step after that was everybody got together to do everything. So I think that was probably the most intimidating part because there were so many people in the studio, and like I said, a lot of them were younger. It is kind of hard to be in that environment where everybody's younger. It's definitely very isolating at times. Like I said, it was really nice to have at least a couple of adults, but they weren't always there with me, and it's not like I was like super close with them, so I still didn't have the same amount of, I guess, camaraderie that a lot of the young students had because they're, you know, friends with each other. And I'm hoping that that will improve as time goes on. What ended up kind of happening was the students really seemed like they were getting used to me, you know, being an outsider. They've seen me around several times now and started kind of interacting with me more. And they're about the age of my aerial students, so I have built relationships with this age group, but usually I'm in more of a mentor position and not really their peer. So I think that the dynamic of like them being my peer and us being so different aged, like that has kind of made it harder to kind of befriend people. And I am definitely not opposed to, you know, being friendly with younger students when we're in that environment together and still having camaraderie even if we do have a big age gap. I think that everyone can kind of find some type of common ground. So that's something that I'm really hoping for in the future. And then I'd love to also see more adults in the space and then hopefully build some of the relationships with the other adult guest artists, maybe the professional artists. Either way, it would just be really nice to have people there that I know are supporting me and rooting for me, and that I can do the same with them and kind of joke around a little bit. I feel like that always makes those kinds of environments just, it takes the pressure off a little bit. Things move pretty fast, obviously, in the rehearsal process. Like we learned everything in the first dance that we did pretty much within 2 rehearsals. It was a lot at once, and you just kind of have to drill it, run it over and over, and you also get a video of the rehearsal afterwards. By the second week, you need to know everything that you had already done. The movement that I had was really fun and I really enjoyed it. It was definitely weird being in character shoes since I've never done that. I think the most uncomfortable part of performing it was like just having to stand on stage and be a background person, kind of like a villager. And that was a little bit unnatural for me. I have been in plenty of situations, even with my company, where I have had to act or portray a character, and I'm okay with that. It's just there are a lot of times that I have had to just stand around and still figure out how to like keep doing different things for like 10 plus minutes. I think that's the most challenging part, is how long you have to be out there if you're more of a townsperson or a background character. I was 24 when I did both of those ballets, and then I'm not sure when my first Nutcracker is going to be because I actually have to get surgery on my ankle this summer and I won't be back on point for probably several months, up to a year. I also would be needing to be in rehearsals by like September, and I'm just not going to be back to things at that point. If I can do it this year, I wouldn't be doing point. I'd have very minor roles, probably not very many of them, probably just one. I'd be more of probably a character actor, and I mean that not as in character dance necessarily, but as in like an actual like acting character and not dancing as much. And that would literally just be so I can participate in some capacity. I do plan on doing their spring ballet, and hopefully by then I can have a couple more roles, maybe even dance on point. It is a possibility that I will still have to do that one on flat, and then maybe, just maybe, my 2026 Nutcracker can be in point shoes. Hopefully I get to actually do Nutcracker this year, and if I do, I will definitely film as much of it as I can. I am here to be a resource for other adult dancers, among other things. I am dabbling a little bit with adult gymnastics. I still do aerial, of course. I would love to be just a resource in general as both a teacher and just someone who loves to do these things. I want to know what you guys want to see and how I can best support you, things that you want to hear about in terms of being an adult ballet dancer, my process, anything like that. Just let me know if you have any suggestions or things that you would like to hear about. I'm making this video as a result of a poll I did asking if basically what anybody would be interested in, and most of the replies were that you guys wanted to hear about my first classical ballet. I know that being an adult dancer, especially if you're new, you're just starting out and you've never done a ballet before, it can be pretty daunting, not knowing how those things would go and not knowing what to expect going into that environment, especially if your opportunity is with a school that has a lot of youth students, which more than likely it is, because that's typically what we as adults have access to if we're not professional. If there's anything in particular that you guys want to know about, let me know, and I'm happy to curate the content around that. So let me know in the comments or pay attention to my polls for the next time that I ask what you guys want me to film, and if there's any particular footage that you guys would like to see, training videos, things like that.